So welcome to the Module 3 webinar, everyone. I'm Laura McFeely, and I'm here with Carly Camiso, and we're both Program Associates at Interise, which is the national curriculum provider for emerging leaders. So we hire all of the fantastic instructors in your local communities, and we also provide the curriculum and the binders that you all use. So Gail Zelitzky will be leading our webinar today. She was one of our first Emerging Leaders instructors in 2008 in Chicago, and she is an instructor support coach for us. Please note that all of the phone lines are muted, so you can use the chat function to send us questions or comments, or you can chat us your phone number and we can unmute your specific line. So Gail, do you want to take it away?
I sure do. Thank you, Laura, and welcome everybody to this afternoon's wonderful, I hope, webinar on branding. Branding is so much more than a marketing approach. And I'm really happy to talk to you about this because I believe this with all my heart, and it's what I coach to, what I speak about, and that we really need to pay attention to it. I hope that you take out some notepads so that you can take notes. And I'm pretty good with the chat board, so please feel free to put your questions up there. I'll be watching for them. I will be happy to answer them at any time during the presentation. Feel free to interrupt me. And, it makes it more fun when everybody is interactive in what we're discussing. So if you have any questions or challenges around this issue, put them up there, and at some point I definitely will get to them. So let's get started. Branding is so much more than a marketing approach. And what is it that we're going to learn today? Well, our purpose today is for you to walk away with a new understanding about what your brand means to the growth of your business and why it deserves so much of your attention. Branding really is a multi-level tool to grow your business. You can't just do one thing when it comes to marketing. You've got to do a bunch of things. And your brand is so much more than your company name, as you will begin to understand as we go through these. I'm hoping you'll learn how to align your brand across all sectors so you can grow smarter and faster. And at the end, we're going to make it meaningful, because that's the most important thing, is that you walk away with something that you can use in your business as soon as tomorrow. So we're going to discuss all of this and more. Are you ready? I hope so. Let's get started. As I said, branding is a multi-level tool. Some people think, and you may be among them, that all you have to do is create a logo and you have a brand. But wouldn't it be better to create the brand and then design a logo that embodies all that the brand stands for? Because, and you'll hear this over and over again today, your brand represents you in the marketplace, and your brand embodies the products you sell, the service you provide, the price you set, and the packaging you create. And it doesn't matter if you're selling products or you're selling services. If you're in manufacturing or you're in IT or you're in retail, it doesn't matter. It goes for everything. Your brand is also you. You, everything you value and stand for. Especially with small businesses, that is true, because people like to know who they're doing business with, and what does that mean? So does your personal brand align with your professional brand? Have you ever thought about this? If you've done a good job, your logo should create a response in people that evokes all the meaning of your company. The concept of branding actually began as early as 2700 BC when Egyptian farm animals were branded. Think of cows and branding, right? Farmers needed to identify their animals, but also to identify themselves, their ranches, their farms. In the late 1800s, Chateau Lafite Rothschild was awarded first growth status in the 1855 classification for grapes that originate in a certain area of the Bordeaux region. And that status launched the prominence of the Rothschild brand of wines. Obviously, for your brand to withstand the test of time, there has to be a whole lot more going on than just the name. So we're going to talk about what it means to have a whole lot more going on. Your brand is really a multi-level tool. And as you can see, it depends on your personal self, your professional self, and your company. It's all three parts that interact to create a brand. And how you lead and who you are ties directly to the respect and value that you and your company receive. Who you are. Think about your communication style. What do people see when they Google you? How many of you have Googled yourself? I wish you could raise your hands and I could see so I'd know how many of you Google yourself. I hope you do. I hope you do, because you will be amazed. Hands can be raised. Okay, this is wonderful. Great. How many of you Google yourself? Raise your hands. Are you satisfied with what you see? Do you like what there is? Think about it. And if you haven't Googled yourself recently, as soon as you get off this webinar, go do it. See what comes up. Would you want people on Facebook to know how you live your life? And what core values do you represent? All of this folds into your brand. And it's especially important for how do you represent yourself on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on Instagram. What do you do? What are you putting up there? What are you saying? Because all of that, whether you realize it or not, is creating a representation of you. And people decide based on that representation whether they want to do business with you or not. So how you conduct yourself professionally, how you do what you say you will do. Do you keep your word? Do you participate in the greater community? How is your customer service conducted? Are your products delivered on time? What's the quality of your goods and services? Again, absolutely everything affects the perception of your brand by your end users. So success in branding is also how you show up to every one of your constituencies. I'm sure you know a lot of people who don't act the same way to all the people in their groups, right? They may act one way with their employer, so some of your staff may act differently with you. They may act differently with their friends. They may use different language. You have to know when you interact with people. People have to know when they interact with you that you're the person, that you're not somebody different no matter who it is. So it's a question of, are you consistent in how you present yourself? And do you really stop to think what comes out of your mouth and how your body language is shown? You can tell. Sometimes people will say something, right? They'll say something, but the look on their face belies that there's any truth at all behind what they're saying. Or, they want you to believe that they are participating fully, and yet they sit in their chairs and they're drooping, or they're watching, they're looking at their iPhones. So I can't impress on you enough that it's how you show up to every one of your constituencies. How you show up to yourself is really important. How you show up to your employees, your customers, your competition, your industry. A lot of business owners hire image consultants to be sure that you're sending the right message, that you're dressing professionally and acting in a way that demands respect. Success is also a result of how your company uses data to stay ahead of your competition. According to the Harvard Business Review, data is what distinguishes the leading brands. Companies that leverage data derived from all sources, including analytics, outperform those who don't. Consider how data, for instance, is changing the fitness industry. I look down at my wrist, and I know that I've changed. I'm actually wearing a Fitbit. And not only am I wearing it, I love it. And I'm 73 years old. So think about how the things that you do represent who you are. And if you know how your customers are changing, then you're able to act and do something about it. Nike studied athletes' needs first and then designed wearables with sensors that provide meaningful feedback. So they are a modern trend, and we already see them on women, men, and children. I bought a new iPhone, and they were giving away a Fitbit with the iPhone, and that's how I got mine. I want to talk to you now about something that's really important to you. It's your purpose. It's your core values, your values system. So let's think about you. When you understand your own purpose in life, why you're in business, and what's important to you, you represent your company on a different level. And every one of us has unique values. And when you lead from your heart, from the authentic you, everyone wins. So what you're looking at here is my purpose, literally my purpose, my template, my values. For instance, caring is very important to me, and so family and friends and community are definitely on my list of values that I have. So I ask you, and then another one is wisdom, right? Lifelong learning. That's why I'm involved with Interise, why I taught for 4 years and have continued on helping instructors. It's a transfer of knowledge. That's why I coach, I teach, I mentor. And vitality, that's another value of mine. Because if I'm going to continue to be able to do the things that I do in this world, then I need mental and physical health. I need energy. And so I ask you, what are your personal values? If you know what you value, then they permeate everything you do in your life. For instance, this might be how they show up at work. I value friends and family, so I care about my employees. I give them time off to attend their kids' soccer games, to take vacations, to volunteer in their communities. I value wisdom, so I reward continuing education. And I value vitality, so I offer fitness opportunities during the lunch hour. I urge you to create your own chart. You can either create it yourself, or we have a template that you can get along with the recording after this. And in each of the 8 circles, you're going to write a value that's important to you. And then on the template, there's lines where you can describe how that value plays out in your life. How about sharing a few of your values with me on the chat board? Tell me what some of your values are. Trust. Yes, trust is a very important value, no question about it. Nobody wants to do business with people they don't trust. Marie, integrity. Diane, caring. Helen, lifelong learner, like me, and loyalty. Gloria, ethics. Collaboration. And loyalty, right. Family values, transparency, service, personal development for employees and self. So I hope that you have these values written down and that you share them with your employees, because they need to know what you value so that they can understand the brand better. And if what you value is how you act, then you're way ahead of the game. So I ask you, would you want to brush your teeth with toothpaste that smelled bad or came in a dirty box? We have to put ourselves in our clients' shoes and feel what they feel. Procter & Gamble wrote the book on marketing for high premium products like Crest, Tide, Pampers, and consumers place their trust. There's that trust value. Consumers place their trust in these brands. And P&G produced consistent, quality-driven products. What do you think? Do you think P&G stands for credibility and authenticity? Did they think about the customer service? Did they value the trust and loyalty they earned? What do you think? Did they? Yeah. And it is pretty yucky to think about brushing your teeth with toothpaste that smells bad. I wouldn't want to do it. Trust and loyalty, positive interactions, consistency. Consistency is so important. You can't be in one mood one day and in another mood another day. You just can't be. You have to be the same day in and day out if you want to seem credible and authentic. And so your personal brand, the things you stand for, make a huge difference in building trust and loyalty. I say, stand out in the crowd. It's really not all that hard to make an impression that sticks. Some of the simplest things cause the deepest impact. If you just do what everyone talks about but rarely does, like return phone calls promptly, underpromise. Don't blow big about what it is that you're going to do for someone. Underpromise and then overdeliver. I had an incident today, actually, very interesting. And one of my, I run a transformation lab, which is like a mastermind group for small business owners. And one of the participants, who happens to be a past student of mine from the Emerging Leaders Program, he's in the embroidery business. And quite a few weeks ago, he took lab coats that my partner and I wear when we do video shoots, and he was going to have them embroidered for us. Well, come last night, both George and I are looking for these lab coats, and we realized that this person still had them. And now it's like 8 o'clock at night. George is in his house. I'm in mine. We are having a video shoot this morning. We need them. So I call this person and I ask him if he has them. And he said, oh, yeah, I do. I said, well, we need them tomorrow morning. What are we going to do? And he said, not to worry. I will drop them off for you sometime during the night. So he did. And when I went down to pick it up this morning, it was in, these 2 lab coats were folded into a messenger bag that had been embroidered with the Transformation Lab logo. I didn't ask him to do that, but he over-delivered. And then when I opened up the 2 lab coats, they had the most beautiful embroidered logos of Transformation Lab. Now that is really how he stands out in the crowd. And he underpromises and overdelivers. And he does what he says he'll do. And when he says he'll do it. In order to make an impact, you really have to do what everyone talks about but rarely does. So let's look at what this means to you. High performers excel in these 3 things, and we're talking about businesses. They excel in these 3 things. Leveraging customer insight, that's all that data we talked about a moment ago, embracing the larger community, and delivering a rich customer experience. The Harvard Business Review in July, August of 2014 had a whole, almost the entire issue was on this subject. It's very important because we're going to take this apart. You're the heart of your company, right? You're the owner of your company. Your influence determines how your people conduct themselves. Your communication style, presence in meetings, reputation outside the company all impact your brand awareness, as we've been saying. But why? Because you are the vessel that carries your message. Can you think of any celebrities that embody their brand? Write down some celebrities you think that embody their brand. I always think about late night show hosts. Anyone have a celebrity that they think really Angelina Jolie, Celine Dion, Kathy Lee Gifford? Right. They are more than just a face on a screen, right? There's so much more to these people, what they do, and we know about them, and we love them for all that they do. Some of the late night show hosts, like Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and Letterman, who's no longer on, and Leno, who's no longer on, all of them have strong, unique styles. And what's interesting is they appeal to different groups. So you don't have to appeal to everyone in the world. You have to appeal to the people who believe in you and what you do, who agree with the kinds of things that you do. And someone loves Jimmy Fallon. Yes, I think he's really good too. And Jon Stewart, right? Yeah, he's good too. Right. So when you're clear on your values, people get it. They understand you, why you think, what your contributions are, right? I mean, look at all those guys that you put down. We know that that's true. A strong personal brand opens up opportunities, and it makes you a go-to person for in-the-moment coverage. This is how you get to be a thought leader. When people are clear on who you are, you increase your influence, your ability to persuade, and to make things happen for yourself and others. If I get across one point to you today, it's not to underplay the importance of your personal brand to the growth of your company. And if you are not the face of the company, then ask yourself, who is? And is that person getting it right? Nothing happens until leadership takes this on. Your leadership is the catalyst that keeps your people innovating, bringing you new solutions, new ways of operating, ideas that expand your brand presence and offerings. I urge you to listen to your marketing people and your sales team, whether internal or outsourced. Be vigilant in how you communicate that and demand that your people innovate and share what they learn. Nothing happens until leadership embraces, believes, communicates the attitudes and values that surround the brand. And I love this quote by Joseph Holland. Responsibility walks hand in hand with capacity and power. So in this instance of what we're talking about, right, when you embrace your values, when you communicate them, and when you have a strong brand and you're responsible about that brand, and you make sure that your people are responsible about that brand, then you have capacity and you have power. So be vigilant in how you communicate that and demand that your people innovate and share what they learn. In the end, isn't business all about relationships? Companies must realize that it's events and experiences, not products and services, that create or destroy value. You have lots of competition out there. I don't care what it is that you're in. If you're a coach, if you're in social media, if you're in IT, if you're in retailing, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, there's competition for what you do. So again, it's those relationships that make all the difference, and how you treat your customers, and your employees. One of the things you can do is define the one area in which you can be a market leader. And so when you know who you are and where you want to play the game, and you're able to communicate that across all sectors of your company, then you market smarter. You train your teams to sell smarter, and you identify your priorities faster. The result is you grow smarter and experience unprecedented growth. Decide in which area you're going to be a market leader. So I'd like you to put up on the chat board, which area do you play in, right? Do you know? Are you a market leader in any one of these areas? Now, just because you're a market leader in one doesn't mean that you are not great in the others. What do you think? Does anyone know what area in which they can be a market leader? You may not quite be a market leader now, but where do you aspire to be a market leader? Product leadership. Okay. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Someone else, Marie, customer intimacy. Joe, operational excellence. Yusuf, operational excellence. And Helen, we live and breathe clients, so it's customer intimacy, yes. This is interesting. Your MS degree, that's at the college, right, Jean? University. Our MS degree in engineering management was ranked 15 in the USA. That's good. Operational excellence. This is exciting to me because each one of you is showing that you really do know the area in which you want to lead. And when you know that, then you can plan differently. Okay, that's great. We'll move on. Here are some market leaders you know, I'm sure, right? These are the brands that made the top 10 Forbes list of the world's most valuable brands in 2014. So the question is, in which area are they the market leader? 5 of these brands are in technology, 1 is in beverages, 1 is in restaurants, 1 is in automotive, 1's in diversified, not any specific industry, and 1's in luxury brands. So it will be interesting for you to determine in which area are each of these a market leader. And thanks for this, Jean. Interbrand Business Week also has a listing. Yes, I think that there are a number of publications that do list the brands that are market leaders. And as you look at each one of these, I think you can see that there is a strong brand value associated with them. And that's what you want your brand to be. You want it to have a strong association with customer intimacy or operational excellence or product leadership so that people will know how to think about you. And Apple is a lifestyle leader. I agree with that. So, as I said a moment ago, it's important that you lead in one area, but you also must master the other. You have to master the other 2. I want to be very clear that you understand this because leading in one area is not to the exclusion of the others. If you do exclude the others, you're on your way to being out of business. I wanted to put this slide in to talk to you a little bit about my business, which was Foremost Sales Promotions, Inc., franchisor of Foremost Liquor Stores. Pay less, get more at your Foremost Liquor Store. And this is one of my previous companies. The Foremost Liquor Stores were all independent retailers, and we were the franchisor, and it was up to us to be sure that the store's volume continually went up. As such, we were the brand keeper, right? So we had to be sticklers about proper logo use, colors, and how we merchandised. And we had to be totally clear on our values so that each store represented them in exactly the same way, which is tricky when you're talking about a franchise. And these were some of our values: people first, caring communication, perseverance, disruption. We were always disrupting the market in one way or another, and so innovation was a daily occurrence in our company. And our company brand purpose, well, we excelled in product leadership. We were the market leader, and our stores were destinations for customers seeking high-end spirits, fine wines, and craft brews. And yet, our slogan was, pay less, get more at your foremost liquor store. So they came seeking all those high-end items, and they knew they were going to get very good value for their money. We were first with self-service, public wine and beer tastings, newsletters, educational seminars, art shows, red blazers for all the owners and clerks. My father, this was a family business, he created Foremost, and he became known as Mr. Foremost and the man in the red coat. I even had a very elegant red silk tuxedo, which I wore to all the industry events. The point is, it's too easy to become complacent, to not do enough to differentiate your brand. So I hope you're thinking about the ways that you can differentiate your brand. Your brand has to excel at these three manifestations of brand purpose. The Harvard Business Review conducted what they call the Marketing 2020 study. Yes, Jean, red silk. It was pretty neat. The Marketing 2020 study surveyed 10,000 execs globally to understand their organization's data analytics capabilities, their brand strategy, their cross-functional and global interactions, their employee engagement, and other factors. And they then compared the responses of high-performing and low-performing companies. And the conclusion they came to was, for your brand to grow, it must access all the three areas. So who knows what manifest means? Put up on the chat board what manifest means. What do we think it means? Lock into place. Yes. Make it happen, right? Something has to happen. What else? Show itself, right. It has to show itself. It has to have an outward, visible expression. You can't just keep this inside, internally. It's got to be shown externally if it's going to have any meaning. And demonstrate, right. It has to demonstrate power and purpose, bring about something. So you have to understand why the customer buys so that you can market to functional benefits. And you have to understand how your brand satisfies needs. Why do people buy from you? What is it that you're doing for them when they buy from you? What are you satisfying? And those are the emotional benefits. And then, you have to have sustainability. There has to be long-term benefits to what you're doing. It can't just be here today, gone tomorrow. And yes, creating the vision and bringing it to life. So these are three very important pieces for what it is that you're trying to do. And overperformers excel when the business lives their brand purpose. So ask yourself, what is my company doing to position our brand to clearly represent our purpose. Do you have any questions at this point? Is there anything you would like to ask or any comment you'd like to make in general? Let's take a moment here to see what there is, what you're thinking out there. I'd love to hear from you.
Gail, we did have one question a little while back about how what you talked about with under-promising and over-delivering works when giving a value proposition statement.
So I'm not quite clear on what the question is.
It was Helen who wrote it in, and what she wrote was, how does this work when giving a value proposition statement with regard to under-promising? Helen,
right.
You can feel free to chat in. Oh, great. Helen actually just sent in her phone number, so I'll unmute her.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Hello, Helen.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there. When giving a value proposition statement, be it if we're meeting face-to-face with a client or in a networking type of, scenario, and we may say, we deliver, 10 minutes faster than somebody else, or we have proven experience where we can save, 50% of, project cost. How does that tie in? You're saying not to over-promise, but to,
Well, I think that when you're talking about the value, what is the value proposition that's tied to what it is that you're talking about? In other words, let's go back to, here I'll give you a preview look if I can. Hold on. Let's talk about this. We'll come back. Whoops. Okay, so when we're talking about under-promising, we want to let people know that it's a value, that delivery, on-time delivery, for example, is a value, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're going to do everything it takes to make sure that you get your product on time, that we deliver when we say we are, and knowing that 99% of the time we're able to come in earlier. We're able to get it finished a week earlier than we promised.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, we'll go back. So, can you all hear me okay, by the way? If you can't, just let me know. You can, yes, good. Okay. So the questions you want to ask yourself is, what's your company doing to position your brand to clearly represent our purpose? And this is an alignment issue, as you saw from that slide I went to. The questions are, is your brand plan based on the values of your company? And does it align with your personal values? Again, we're talking about smaller businesses that have leaders who are out there representing those businesses. And so does what you expect people to have as personal values in your business show up? So do you educate and train your employees on the importance of your plan to the success and reputation of the business, to the brand plan? Do they understand every aspect of it and how these values tie into your plan? So if you're letting someone loose to do social media for you, they need a really solid understanding of what's okay with you to say about the company and why. And so you have to educate and train your employees on the importance of the plan to the success and reputation of your business. And do you inspire your employees to live the brand values themselves and to encourage them to bring you evidence that you can share? And so when they do, You want to acknowledge them in postings, newsletters, on signs in the workplace. Your people are representing you. And when they represent you well, that's what you want to let them know you value. So here's something you can do next week. Take some of your top thought leaders in or out of your company, but some of the people you value, whose opinions you value, and hold a brainstorming session. Ask, in what area do we excel? Is it customer intimacy, marketing excellence, or product leadership? Make sure that they see it the same way you do. Ask them, do we understand how our brand creates functional, emotional, and societal benefits? And 3, what are all the ways we might communicate our brand plan more clearly? And in what ways might we inspire our employees to get out and volunteer, mentor new workers, take continuing ed classes? So I hope that you will ask these difficult questions and look at them with some of the people whose opinions you value. Because as you see on this slide, the study reflects that 56% of firms who live a brand purpose versus 46% whose firms have no brand purpose, their sales excel. What we're talking about here is directly related to sales. Directly. So this is important. Leaders who grow focus. They want to understand their brand across all sectors. And then they want to create alignment across all areas of the business. So it isn't good enough that your sales team represents you correctly out there. It's also as crucially important as the people who answer your phones, as the bookkeepers, as anybody, because they have lives outside of your business. And if they're talking about you in a way you don't want to be talked about, then that's hurting your brand. So you have to take each aspect or department of your business and examine it individually. It's so important. You want to focus. Focus on the right metrics. Which KPIs drive your business? Focus on the right people. Who's responsible for brand management? Have you identified one person to take on this role? And focus on the right message. How is everything communicated? What happens is there's a disconnect when the different parts of your organization are left to define the brand on their own, and the result is lower performance. You want to reward your people with incentives for managing and supporting your brand and for contributing to revenue growth and profit. Here's where culture comes in, and I'm sure you've thought about the culture of your business. No more command and control. Today, it's create, collaborate, and communicate. Expect that every single person in your company lives your brand and set them up for success. Provide training, education, and support. Engage your employees with pizza parties or other events and communicate your brand promise and inspire them to walk the talk. All of you can read the Zappos Code of Business Conduct and Ethics. It's published online for all to see. And it's really a good example of how values and brand are integrated throughout the whole company. You really want to take time to look at it and find out how they implement it throughout their company. And here's an important thing. Never assume just because you're small that your employees get it. Few employees see beyond their own area of influence to understand the global strategy of your company. You change that through communication. So you have to create a touch point plan for your employees just as you do for your clients or consumers. And Twitter and Instagram are great ways to engage employees. One advantage of being small is you're more agile. And that's another whole webinar on what I call the agile leader. You want to keep things simple. but strategic. So let's look at your alignment plan. Okay? Before we looked at your core values, now we're looking at the company as a whole. And I can send you this template too. I think we already put it up also. Each of the 8 circles represents different parts of your business. And it's here that you have to make sure you engage every aspect of your company to participate in brand building. Any worthwhile brand building plan must include specifics for each area. So does this give you some ideas of what you might be missing? Any questions about this? Any comments? What do? Do you look at every part of your business to see if you're aligning your values throughout? Alignment is a powerful concept. Yes, it is. And I wish more people did this too. It's what I teach because it just can't be overlooked. A lot of this leads to sustainability, to long-term success. You know, when you look at each one of these items on the, yes, Joe, I was just going to comment on that. When you look at each one of the items on here on this, these circles, you might ask yourself, why is billing, for instance, included? Well, think about it. When you bill a customer, you're sending out some kind of paper, right? And how is your brand represented on that paper that your customer receives? It's the same with your IT department. Your brand has to integrate throughout your entire company. And Jean says the CEO should be the CBO, the Chief Brand Officer. That's right, because anything that touches the customer is important. So I find that not too many of my clients really look at this as a whole. They don't think about every aspect of their business. And so I suggest when you get back to work, discuss it with your employees and agree on a plan of action. And set measures to determine results and time frames for review. And keep tweaking the plan until it becomes a true embodiment of your values. This won't happen overnight, but if you start thinking about it now and you make it a part of your growth action plan, then you can do something with this. And I hope that you do. So in order to make something happen, I want to make sure that something happens as a result of your listening to this webinar. Let's get ready, number 1. Actively seek knowledge from everyone in your company and especially outside salespeople and those who are already doing marketing and communication for you. And then be open to finding mentors who already apply such concepts to their marketing. It helps to connect with the other companies first to learn more. Then you're better poised to manage the process. Or you can bring in consultants who can help you answer the, what do I do with all this information when I have it question. And 2, get set. Before you attempt to engage your employees in any change, be clear on your focus and work from a plan. You only have, and hear what I say, you only have one chance for successfully implementing a new way of thinking, feeling, and doing, and it won't happen overnight. So any plan like this needs to be introduced in stages. And you got to get lots of feedback along the way and be sure that the change is impacting every single person in the company and measure the results. Managing change is a skill and should not be entered into lightly. You get set by actively listening, by wanting to know how you're doing. with your employees, with your clients, with others in your constituencies, your bankers, your accountants, your referral sources, your strategic partners. Ask them and actively listen to the answers. And then begin to identify gaps. And then you can engage your managers and start communicating values. And that way you set the stage for change. So I like to look at it this way. I say fully integrate your brand plan. It's good when you recognize that your brand is a multi-level tool. And it's much better when you measure your actions against every aspect of your business. You know, we're talking a lot about measures, how we measure what we're doing in the growth action plans that you're creating. But what's best, what's really perfect, is to develop a comprehensive strategy that's planned and implemented. A comprehensive strategy requires buy-in from your key stakeholders, so you have to draw them in all the way through the process. If you're going to strive to be the best, remember, inch by inch, life is a cinch. Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Start small, but keep the vision clear. And again, this strategy must be on your growth action plan, or it won't happen. So, what happens when branding becomes so much more than a marketing approach? Well, you get engagement across all sectors. You get solid brand performance. You get consistent growth. And you get more customers and more money in the door. And all of this leads to success. So get started today to build your brand and create a more profitable and sustainable future for you and your company. And, you know, my final thought is, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. We must constantly strive for new ways of thinking. And there's another whole webinar I do called Strengthen Your Business with Creativity. And when we understand that we have different people in the room, that some of us are clarifiers, some of us are ideators, some of us are developers, and others are implementers. And we make sure to have every one of those thinking preferences on our teams, then things can happen. And when we start talking in a way that urges innovation, that defers judgment, that allows people to express their views, then amazing things begin to happen. So I want to spend a little time, and we have a lot of time, but I want to spend a little time on how to make it real. What are the things that you can do to make it real? So first of all, give me 3 things that you learned today. Put them up on the chat board. 3 things you learned from this presentation. Did you learn anything from this presentation? I hope so. The alignment model, right? Teach your brand to employees. Have them be your ambassadors, right? How to communicate your core values and the importance of personal values aligned with business values. And then that I have a red silk tux. And that branding is a representation of ourselves. Right, that's right. Yes, and create, collaborate, and communicate. I do love my Fitbit. And that the brand is a reflection of you as a leader. Yes, this is good. Right. You're going to share your values, reward your employees. Brand is personal and business. All right, let me ask you this. What are 2 things that you can apply immediately? 2 things you can apply. What from what you learned today can you apply to your business tomorrow? Yes, you can use that alignment model. So, Talisa, how are you going to do what people rarely do? What does that mean to you, to do what people rarely do? What are you going to do differently? And creating a values chart is a great thing to do. So you're going to return calls and under-promise, over-deliver. It's so easy for us to not return calls promptly. And with email today and Facebook and messages coming at us from all different ways, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it, isn't it? So you have to decide if it's important to you to get back to people promptly. And if it is, then you must make time in the day to do it. You're going to be more concerned with your personal brand, Marie. That's great. And Gloria, Google yourself to see current status. And I like that, Jean. You're going to test the brand values across the organization and ask them what they think the brand values are to see if others say the same thing. Because I'll bet you that what you think they are is not what your employees think. That's the first place to start, to talk to your employees and ask them to write down what are our brand values? What do you think is important to us? And then engage them in the values and alignment models. So I find this interesting, Helen, that you're going to reshape your value proposition statement and make sure it aligns with values. So do you think that your value proposition statement can use some work in this area? Helen, what do you think?
Helen, I just unmuted you again if you want to speak up.
Okay. Helen?
Okay, all right, thanks, I appreciate that. I think the key thing is making sure that we're not over-promising in our value proposition statement. So it's gleaning on some of the guidance that you shared earlier that if it's 99% of the time, we can make sure it's there overnight.
What kind of business are you in?
We have a technical services company, so we do provide building design, architectural engineering designs, as well as construction oversight and inspection.
Okay.
So I mean, one of the things that we promise, I mean, that we're coming in, we're slicing be it the dollars on projects and slicing the time for delivering, and so our data historically shows that we can come in at 40%, savings for clients.
Okay. So how is that going to play into the way you reshape your value proposition?
I want to make sure that I'm under promising, and that we come in and we do what we do well.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because we often fall into the deep hole of saying, oh, yeah, we always get our work done in time. In fact, we come in at 40% ahead, and then that's the one time. that something happens, right? We can't deliver.
It could be the one time that something happens, and then I find myself as the leader, at 12 o'clock at night working on drawings myself. So we're in deep crap at that time. So.
That's right. So you don't want that to happen.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's great. So that's something you're going to do differently. I want to hear from every one of you. What's one thing that you're going to do differently? One thing. You've given me a lot of things that you can immediately apply and some things that you learn, but what really stands out as something you need to do differently? As the leader of your company, you need to do something differently. What's it going to be? Embody your brand. Think about how you appear professionally and personally. A lot of this goes right into your personal lives too, which is why I love talking about it. How are you going to get a visual representation of your brand? Jean, how are you going to do that? You don't know? You want to do something differently? You want to think about, yes, I see what you're saying. You're going to talk to an artist, right? I got it. Right. You need to get a graph. That's very important because, as we know, people learn differently, right? So if they can see all the time the visual representation of the brand, I think that will go a long way. And just using these two worksheets, the alignment plan and the core values plan, you can share those too with your employees. You're going to make sure that employees understand the value of the brand. Now, how are you, Marie? How are you doing? How is that different from what you were doing? And Jean, I agree with that too, that you can have both a verbal and a visual explanation of the brand. And Joe, do you try to avoid public focus? Someone in your company, even if it's not you, has to be the visible representation of your company. Yes, Jean, expound on what it is that you're saying.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Expound on what you're saying.
One of the things that I used to do in product development was I used to bring in artists to help us understand concepts, because we had too many engineers that like to have very specific things, but they never saw things or heard things with the right side of their brain.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought in an artist to sketch what we were talking about from a product concept standpoint, not an isometric engineering drawing, and then maybe even people using it. And what we found was people understood concepts and ideas better when they saw something. So if we could engage people by what they hear our values are, but if we can find a way and what we want the strategy or what we want the brand to represent, but if they can hear it, some words, and then they can see it, we can activate different parts of their brain, and we can appeal to more people and different parts, and I think we can get a better understanding. So as I was thinking about your question, I thought maybe what we need to do is to engage them more so that they really remember. And sometimes people remember what they see and what they hear.
Right, right. So who's the they you're talking about?
Employees,
okay.
More than anything, or team members.
Right.
If I look at that here at the university, I know we don't have alignment, and although we have a pretty good understanding, we don't share it well.
Mhm. Mhm. Right. And that's why I say create, communicate, collaborate. Because first you have to create what this is all about. So it's a living, breathing thing, and doing it visually and verbally is good. And then you have to communicate it. You have to talk about it. Yes. And then you have to collaborate. You have to continue to work on it, continue to tweak it, continue to make sure that everyone in the company, or even all the people you outsource work to, understand your brand proposition and what it means to you. So who else is going to do something different? What else can you do? Well, this slide presentation will be available to you. And yes, I totally agree with you, Jean, that understanding, not memorization. So how do people actually, how does it get into the DNA of the organization? How does this brand, the living, breathing, evolving, ever-evolving brand, how does it live in the DNA of the organization? It has to. It has to. And so when we go back to that alignment and we look at all of the pieces, all of the different departments, that's how we get it to live in the DNA, by making sure that we, sometimes we just want to do that marketing piece, right, and get it out there. After all, we're trying to sell products and services, so we want to get that marketing piece out there. But if we don't take the time to do a vertical on that marketing piece, to explain it to everybody in the company so they get it, then when questions come in or they're talking to other people, they're not going to know what it is that was in your head when you created that marketing piece. It has to live in the DNA of the company. So I have a few things to share with you, and that is some resources. So I referenced a lot from the Harvard Business Review, and this is the reprint, R1407C. Anyone can order them through hbr.org. And then to understand yourself better, and perhaps to understand who you've got in the room, there are a couple of tests that you can administer. And I'm sure you all know the StrengthsFinder 2.0 book. It's just a little book, but it has a code in the book that you then take this assessment online, and it includes an action planning guide. And it's very useful, and it tells you, especially you as the leader, what are my strengths? What really are my strengths? And then how can I use them? And then it helps you know where to bring in people to complement you. And along that same line is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And, your self-awareness, your self-management, your social awareness, your relationship management. That might help you, Joe. If you avoid the public focus, then it might help you to know more about yourself, understand yourself better. And that too is just a little book and easy to read. And this one I just like, Bruce Schneider's Energy Leadership. And it just is so important that we understand that energy is the currency of personal and professional success. We have to show energy to our employees and to our public, because it makes them want to be there. So, Joe, you already used the StrengthsFinders. Yes, good. And was it useful? Did you find that it of value to you? And you're going to look into emotional intelligence, but tell me if you found the StrengthsFinders of value. Yes, right. I do too. I think it's really a useful tool. And then there's one I didn't put on here, which you might like to look into, which is it's called Foursightonline.com, Foursight.com, and it's an assessment that you can take to understand how you think. Remember I mentioned to you earlier the clarifier, ideator, developer, implementer, the four, we call it 4-power innovation, the thinking preferences that help teams work together better. You can go on to Foresight Online. Maybe someone wants to type that into the chat board for me. And you can read all about it and look at it yourself. The assessment I think is $35, so it's easy to look at. And then Good to Great, you all know that book. It's really a wonderful book, and it talks about how long-term sustained performance can be built into the DNA of a company. And finally, Guerrilla Marketing Excellence, J. Conrad Levinson. He is just the guru when it comes to some marketing ideas and thoughts. And so I thought you might find that useful as well. So that's all I have. And I hope that you found this useful and that you're willing to meet me at the intersection of creativity and business, and that you take some of this information and you do something with it. And my phone number is on here. My email is on here. Feel free to reach out to me, to call me, to email me. I'm happy to talk to you anytime at all about any of this. Branding is just, my love. And so personal and professional branding. So thank you so much, Talisa. I appreciate it. And I hope everyone got something out of this. Thank you, Raj.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gail. That was a really fantastic webinar. We will be posting the recording, the slides, and the templates on Interise Connect after the webinar, so you can look for those there if you want to hear this again. And thank you all so much for attending.